Jasmine Cole, a self-made titan in the tech world, was on the cusp of the biggest deal of her career. A merger with a legacy company, Citadel Global, that would catapult Cole Industries into the stratosphere. But a simple act of walking into a tech summit would prove to be a test of more than just her business acumen. The guard at the executive entrance took one look at her and her confidence, but his words told a different story. "This line's for executives only," he said. The full weight of the words hit her, a familiar echo of a world that hadn't quite caught up with her. Little did she know, the man who would walk out and change everything was watching, and his decision would reshape not only her life, but the very foundation of the tech industry. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. The glass doors of the Global Tech Summit shimmered under the July sun, reflecting the endless procession of suited figures and the towering skyscrapers of downtown Chicago. Inside, the air hummed with the electric energy of innovation and ambition. But for Jasmine Cole, the CEO of Cole Industries, the walk from her car to the entrance felt less like a celebration and more like a gauntlet. Her navy blue power suit, tailored to perfection, felt like a shield, and her heels clicked a rhythm of purpose on the polished concrete. She'd spent the last year negotiating the most significant merger in her company's history, a complex, high-stakes union with Citadel Global, a corporation that had been a pillar of the industry since before she was born. Today, she was meeting with their board chair, Reginald Sterling, a man whose reputation for shrewdness was matched only by his deep-seated traditionalism. Jasmine made her way to the designated entrance for VPs and above. The line was short, a single rope separating a dozen or so high-ranking executives from the hundreds of general attendees shuffling toward the main gate. She felt a flicker of pride, not for the exclusive access, but for the journey that had brought her here. She, a girl from the south side of Chicago who had built an empire from a single line of code, was about to stand shoulder to shoulder with the most powerful people in tech. As she approached the velvet rope, a security guard, a man with a stiff posture and a stern expression, held up a hand. "The general admission line is over there," he said, gesturing with his head toward the throng of people. Jasmine's smile, a practiced and polite curve of her lips, faltered. "I believe I'm in the right place," she said, her voice even and calm. The guard's gaze swept over her, a quick, dismissive once-over. "This is for VPs and above," he repeated, his tone laced with a paternalistic impatience. "We're not taking general admission here. Your badge should get you in through the main entrance." A sharp, familiar stab of frustration shot through her, but she kept her composure. She knew this dance. The quiet disbelief, the assumption that her presence in such a space must be a mistake. She simply held out her badge, a sleek black rectangle with the Cole Industries logo emblazoned on it. "I understand," she said, her voice now cooler, a subtle shift that signaled her professional distance. "My badge says I'm in the right place." The guard sighed, a puff of air that spoke volumes about his irritation. He took the badge from her, his fingers brushing hers for a fraction of a second. He held it up to the scanner, a small red light flashing across its surface. The screen next to it flickered, then an icon appeared. It was the Cole Industries logo, followed by two bold, unmistakable words, CEO. The guard's jaw went slack. The dismissive posture vanished, replaced by a startled confusion. He stared at the screen, then at the badge, then back at Jasmine. A faint flush crept up his neck. He stammered something, a jumble of apologies that sounded like a sputtering engine. I'm so sorry, ma'am. I didn't." Jasmine didn't let him finish. She simply took her badge back, her expression unreadable. The moment felt both familiar and strangely surreal. The small, private humiliation was a microaggression she had long since learned to navigate, but it still stung. As she stepped past the velvet rope, she heard the guard's quiet, mortified apologies trailing behind her. The incident was a minor inconvenience, but it left a bitter taste in her mouth. She pushed the feeling down, forcing her mind back to the merger. Today was about business, about securing her company's future. She couldn't let a small-minded guard derail her. She was just past the security checkpoint, taking in the grand atrium with its towering glass sculptures and endless streams of people, when a voice cut through the hum of the crowd. Jasmine. She turned to see Reginald Sterling, the Citadel Global chairman, striding toward her. He was a man in his late 60s, with a mane of silver hair and a meticulously tailored suit. His face, usually a mask of stoicism, was now lit with a warmth that surprised her. He held a thick stack of documents in his hand. "Reginald, thank you for meeting me," she said, extending a hand. He took it, his grip surprisingly firm. "Jasmine, I was just coming to find you." He gestured to the side, away from the flow of traffic. "We had a small board meeting before the summit, and there's something I need to give you." He handed her the documents, a formal-looking packet with the Citadel Global seal on the cover. "It's the final merger agreement, ratified this morning. We're a go." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the moment she had worked tirelessly for. She took the packet, her fingers tracing the embossed seal. "This is incredible news, Reginald. Thank you." He smiled, a genuine crinkling smile that reached his eyes. "The thanks, Jasmine, belongs to you. And there's something else." He took a deep breath, and his gaze was steady and serious. "The board voted unanimously to appoint you as the new chairwoman of Citadel Global." Jasmine's mind went blank. The words hung in the air, a bell tolling through the silent space she had just entered. She stared at him, unable to form a coherent thought. The new chairwoman?" she stammered. "The new chairwoman," Reginald confirmed, his voice filled with an almost paternal pride. "The merger is the first step. The second is to ensure the new entity, which will be called Citadel Cole, is led by someone with the vision to take it into the next century. Our board has watched your work, your innovation, your foresight, your relentless drive. Quite simply, you are the future, and we need you at the helm." And Jasmine looked down at the documents, then back at Reginald, and finally, her eyes caught the security guard still standing by the checkpoint. He was frozen, a statue of shock, staring at the scene unfolding before him. The same man who had told her this line was for executives only was now watching her receive the ultimate symbol of executive power. The irony was so profound, it was almost comical. She saw the realization dawn in his eyes, the dawning horror of a mistake of colossal proportions. The rest of the summit passed in a blur. Jasmine sat on a panel discussing the future of AI, a subject she knew intimately, but her mind was elsewhere. She kept replaying the moment with Reginald, the quiet dignity of his offer, the profound shift in her career, and the small, satisfying victory over the guard's prejudice. The incident, which had felt so deflating just an hour ago, had been transformed into a preamble to her greatest triumph. Later that evening, after the summit had ended and the last of the attendees had filed out, Jasmine stood alone in the quiet expanse of the main hall. She felt a sense of peace she hadn't known was possible. The weight of the deal was gone, replaced by the weight of a new responsibility, one that felt exhilarating. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from her mother. "Just saw the news on a live stream, honey," it read. "So proud. But be careful. It's a bigger stage now." Her mother's words were a grounding force, a reminder that success came with its own set of challenges. She had won this battle, but the war for true equity was far from over. She thought of the guard, of Reginald, of the countless people who had misjudged her, and she knew her work was just beginning. It wasn't about proving them wrong, but about making it impossible for others to be treated the same way. She was the chairwoman now, and she would use that power to build a world where the line for executives was open to anyone with the vision and the grit to earn their place in it. Over the next few weeks, the news of Jasmine's appointment rippled through the tech world. The media was abuzz with headlines about the merger and the meteoric rise of Jasmine Cole. Some articles were laudatory, praising Citadel's forward-thinking decision. Others were more cautious, hinting at the old guard's potential resistance to such a dramatic shift in leadership. Jasmine, however, remained unfazed. She spent her days in back-to-back meetings, poring over quarterly reports, and meeting with the various teams that now fell under her purview. Her first major challenge as chairwoman of the newly formed Citadel Cole came from within. The integration of the two corporate cultures was proving to be a difficult task. Citadel was a sprawling, hierarchical organization with decades of tradition. Cole Industries, by contrast, was lean, agile, and fiercely innovative. There were whispers in the hallways of Citadel's downtown Chicago headquarters, hushed conversations in conference rooms, and passive-aggressive emails about the new way of doing things. Jasmine decided to address the tension head-on. She called for a town hall meeting, a full assembly of all employees from both companies. The grand auditorium, a space usually reserved for shareholder meetings, was packed. The air was thick with a nervous energy. She stood on the stage, the newly minted Citadel Cole logo shining behind her, and looked out at the faces in the crowd, a sea of both familiar and new expressions. She saw the skepticism, the curiosity, and the outright resistance. "I know what many of you are thinking," she began, her voice clear and strong. "You're thinking that this is a marriage of two very different worlds. And you'd be right. Citadel has a legacy of excellence that is unmatched. Cole Industries has a spirit of innovation that has pushed boundaries. Some of you might be worried that the very things that made your company great will be lost in this process. I want to assure you, that is not the goal." She spoke not of profit margins or stock prices, but of shared vision. She told them a story she had rarely shared, about the early days of her company, when she had worked from her parents' basement, fueled by caffeine and an unshakable belief in her idea. She spoke of the struggle, the doubt, the countless times she had been told her vision was too ambitious, too naive. She saw a flicker of recognition in the eyes of some of the younger employees, a dawning understanding in the faces of the older ones. She wasn't just a CEO, she was a builder. "We are not here to erase the past," she continued. "We are here to build a new future. We are going to take the best of both worlds, the stability and wisdom of Citadel, and the ingenuity and speed of Cole Industries. And we are going to create something truly extraordinary. We will innovate faster, reach farther, and solve problems no one else has dared to tackle, and we will do it together." Her words seemed to land. The tentative ripple of applause started in the front rows and spread throughout the auditorium. She had done it. She had started to bridge the gap. As the weeks turned into months, Jasmine immersed herself in the minutiae of the business. She met with division heads, listened to the concerns of project managers, and even took time to chat with employees in the cafeteria. She learned that a decades-old company like Citadel had layers of bureaucracy that stifled creativity. She saw talented people mired in red tape, their ideas withering on the vine. It was anathema to everything she believed in. One afternoon, she met with the head of the AR department, a grizzled veteran named Arthur Vance, who had been with Citadel for over 30 years. He was a man of few words, his office cluttered with schematics and old prototypes. He had been one of the most vocal critics of the merger. "Ms. Cole," he began, his voice raspy, "I'll be honest with you. This whole agile approach, you're pushing, it's a pipe dream. You need structure, you need process. You can't just wing it." Jasmine leaned forward, her elbows on the table. "Arthur, I'm not asking you to wing it. I'm asking you to think differently. How many good ideas had been shelved because they didn't fit into the 5-year plan? How many patents are gathering dust because the risk was deemed too high?" Arthur stared at her, a hint of grudging respect in his eyes. "Dozens," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "More than I can count." "Then let's start with one of them," she said, her voice filled with a quiet intensity. "Show me the one you believed in the most, the one you fought for the hardest, and let's get it out of the drawer." He hesitated for a moment, then walked over to a filing cabinet and pulled out a worn-looking manila folder. He opened it and showed her a schematic for a new kind of battery technology, one that was smaller, more efficient, and more sustainable than anything currently on the market. The project had been shelved years ago because it was considered too expensive and too long-term. Jasmine's eyes lit up. This wasn't just a project, it was a game-changer. "Arthur," she said, her voice filled with excitement, "this isn't just a prototype. This is the future. Get your team together. I'll clear the budget. We're going to build this." Arthur Vance, the stoic traditionalist, looked at her with an expression of pure, unadulterated awe. "Ms. Cole, he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You are something else." The project, which they code-named Project Phoenix, became a symbol of the new Citadel Cole. It revitalized the art department, inspiring a level of creativity and collaboration that hadn't existed in years. The success of Project Phoenix sent a clear message. Under Jasmine's leadership, a new era of innovation was beginning. But not everyone was a convert. A few senior executives from the old Citadel Guard saw Jasmine's reforms as an erosion of their authority. They grumbled about her disruptive management style and her reckless spending on unproven projects. They were a small but powerful faction, and their leader was a longtime board member named Marcus Thorne. He had been a contender for Reginald's chair, and he viewed Jasmine's appointment as a personal slight. He began a quiet campaign to undermine her. He planted negative stories in the press, accusing her of mismanaging funds and alienating key stakeholders. He organized secret meetings with the other members of his faction, laying out a plan to oust her at the next board meeting. His ambition was a dark mirror to her own. He craved power, but he wanted it by tearing someone down, not by building something up. The day of the board meeting arrived with a tense calm. The room, with its long mahogany table and high-backed leather chairs, felt like a battleground. Marcus Thorne, seated at the head of the table, his face a mask of cold professionalism, started the meeting by presenting a detailed report on the financial instability caused by the recent merger. He rattled off figures, his voice low and measured, painting a picture of a company in crisis. Jasmine listened, her expression unreadable. She had anticipated this. She had come prepared. When he finished, the room was silent. A few of the other board members, those who had been swayed by Thorne's arguments, nodded in agreement. "Thank you, Marcus," Jasmine said, her voice steady. "A very compelling report." She then clicked a button on a remote, and a new set of slides appeared on the screen. The first one was a photo of the new battery from Project Phoenix. The second was a list of companies that had already placed orders. The numbers were staggering. "Project Phoenix," she began, her voice now ringing with quiet authority, "was a long-term investment. It was a calculated risk, and it has already paid off. We have secured contracts with several major automakers, and the initial projections show that this one project will generate more revenue in the next 5 years than the R department has in the last 2 decades. We took a risk, yes, but it was a risk worth taking." She then presented a series of slides showing the revitalized employee morale, the surge in patent filings, and the overwhelmingly positive feedback from the new, more streamlined company structure. She had not only defended her position, she had proven the validity of her vision. The room, which had been so tense a few moments ago, now hummed with a different kind of energy. The members of Marcus's faction looked at their shoes, their faces flushed with embarrassment. Reginald Sterling, who had been listening with a quiet pride, smiled a slow, knowing smile. The vote to affirm her position as chairwoman was unanimous. Marcus Thorne, defeated, could only sit in his chair, the weight of his failed coup hanging over him like a shroud. Later that day, as she walked out of the building, a different kind of security guard greeted her. A woman with a warm smile and a badge that read, "Director of Security." "Chairwoman Cole," she said, her voice filled with respect. "I just wanted to say, I've heard a lot about what you've done for the company. We're all very proud to work for you." Jasmine smiled, a deep, genuine smile that reached her eyes. She thanked the woman, then continued on her way. She thought back to that day, months ago, when she had been stopped at the entrance. The memory no longer stung. It was no longer a moment of humiliation, but a testament to how far she had come. She had faced down an injustice, and, in doing so, had not only earned her place, but had also started to change the world around her. The line was no longer for executives only. It was for anyone with the vision and the courage to build a better future. Jasmine's days were a whirlwind of activity, but they were also deeply fulfilling. She had found a new sense of purpose in her role as chairwoman, one that extended beyond the bottom line. She saw the company not just as a machine for generating profit, but as an ecosystem of human talent, a place where people could thrive and create. She began an initiative to mentor young, promising employees, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds, and her office hours became a coveted opportunity to receive guidance from the top. One afternoon, a young man named Kenji walked into her office. He was a software engineer, bright but shy, and he had an idea for an app that could revolutionize supply chain management. He had spent months trying to get it approved, but the old bureaucracy had stymied him at every turn. Jasmine listened, her eyes fixed on his, as he laid out his vision. She saw in him the same fire she had once had, the same unwavering belief in his own ideas. "Kenji," she said, when he had finished, "this is a brilliant concept. You have a team and a budget, starting tomorrow. Get to work." He blinked, a look of pure shock on his face. "Just like that?" he asked. She smiled. "Just like that," she confirmed. "Good ideas don't need to fight to be heard. They just need a chance to prove themselves." The success of Kenji's app, which went from concept to market in a matter of months, became another feather in Citadel Cole's cap. It was a testament to Jasmine's philosophy, a clear message that innovation and agility were now at the heart of the company's culture. Her influence was not just felt in the boardroom, but in every corner of the organization. Months turned into a year. The merger was a resounding success, and Citadel Cole became a new kind of corporate entity, a hybrid of old-world wisdom and new-world innovation. The company's stock price soared, and its reputation as an industry leader was cemented. Jasmine Cole, the woman who had been told she wasn't in the right line, was now a name synonymous with power, vision, and transformative change. She had earned her place, not with a simple badge scan, but with a fierce determination to prove that true leadership was not about where you came from, but about where you were going. One evening, as she was leaving the office, a security guard stopped her at the entrance. It was a new face, a young woman named Sarah. She held a hand up, a gesture of polite reverence. "Chairwoman Cole," she said, her voice filled with respect. "Just wanted to say, I saw the documentary about your story. It's inspiring. It made me realize that there's a place for people like me in this industry, and that's a powerful thing. Thank you." Jasmine's heart swelled with an emotion she hadn't anticipated. It wasn't just about the company anymore. It was about the lives she had touched, the barriers she had broken down. She thought of the first guard, the one who had so casually dismissed her. She no longer felt anger toward him, just a profound sense of pity for the limited world he saw. She had opened his eyes, if only for a moment, and in doing so, had opened the door for countless others. Her journey, which had started with a simple act of prejudice, had culminated in a mission to make sure that no one else had to face the same obstacles she had. She was the chairwoman of Citadel Cole, a powerful force in the world of technology, but more importantly, she was a beacon of hope, a testament to the fact that when a door is closed in your face, sometimes all you have to do is build your own. Jasmine's ascendancy wasn't just a victory for her, it was a win for a new generation of leaders. The narrative of her story, from the security guard incident to her ultimate triumph, was a compelling one, and it resonated deeply with aspiring entrepreneurs and seasoned executives alike. She became a sought-after speaker, her schedule filled with engagements at universities, conferences, and corporate retreats. She used every platform as an opportunity to espouse her philosophy of inclusive leadership and ethical innovation. One of her most impassioned speeches was at her alma mater, the University of Chicago. Standing on a stage in a packed auditorium, she looked out at the faces of the future, a diverse sea of young men and women. "They told me a lot of things when I was starting out," she began, her voice a mix of humor and gravitas. "They told me I was too young, too ambitious, too different. They told me to wait my turn. But the thing about ambition is, it doesn't wait. And the thing about being different is, it's a superpower. You have a perspective no one else has. You see solutions to problems no one else even knows exist. Don't let anyone tell you to wait. And don't let anyone tell you to change." Her words were met with a standing ovation. As she left the stage, a young black woman with her hair in a sleek bun and a determined look in her eyes approached her. "Ms. Cole," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "I'm in my last year of engineering, and I'm about to start my own company. I've been so scared, but watching you, listening to your story, it gave me the courage to just go for it. Thank you. Thank you. Jasmine took her hand, her grip firm and reassuring. You don't need my courage, she said, her voice soft but powerful. You already have everything you need. Now, go build something great. The young woman's face broke into a radiant smile. Jasmine saw a reflection of her younger self, full of fire and doubt, and knew that her work was far from over. Her legacy would not be measured in stock prices or corporate mergers, but in the lives she had inspired and the doors she had opened. She had become more than a CEO. She was a trailblazer, a pioneer, and an icon of a new, more inclusive world. She had started out a CEO, and she had become a chairwoman. But in the quiet moments, she knew she had become something even more meaningful. A force for change. A living testament to the fact that a person's worth is not defined by where they're allowed to stand, but by the power they have to create a new path for others to follow. The success of Citadel Cole was a testament to Jasmine's leadership, but it also painted a large, visible target on her back. Her transformative tenure had not gone unnoticed by the most powerful entities in the world, not just in business, but in government. The administration in Washington was in the process of drafting a new federal initiative to modernize the nation's outdated infrastructure, a multi-billion-dollar project that would require an unprecedented level of technological prowess. They needed a partner who was not just capable, but visionary. And all roads seemed to lead to Citadel Cole. A formal invitation arrived at her office. One crisp autumn morning, a thick, engraved envelope requesting her presence at a closed-door briefing with the Secretary of Commerce. The proposal was staggering in its scope. A chance to not only secure a massive contract, but to fundamentally shape the future of her country. Jasmine accepted the meeting without a second thought. This was the kind of opportunity she had always dreamed of. A chance to prove that technology could serve a greater purpose. The meeting took place in a stark, windowless conference room in the heart of the Capitol. The air was charged with the kind of subdued power that felt heavier than any boardroom. The Secretary of Commerce, a seasoned politician with a reputation for being shrewd and pragmatic, laid out the project's parameters. It was a massive undertaking, a complex web of logistics, cybersecurity, and cutting-edge data analysis. The bidding process, he explained, would be highly competitive and highly scrutinized. There are other players, of course, the secretary said, his voice a low, gravelly hum, legacy companies with deeper roots and federal contracts, but the administration is looking for a fresh perspective, a partner with the agility to adapt to a rapidly changing world. Your work at Citadel Cole has made you a compelling candidate, Miss Cole. As she listened, Jasmine felt a familiar mix of pride and caution. The challenge was immense, but so was the potential. She knew this was not just a bidding process, Cass. It was a political arena. Winning would require more than just a superior technological proposal. It would require navigating a world of backroom deals and hidden agendas. Her instincts proved correct when, a week later, she received a call from a number she didn't recognize. On the other end was a voice as smooth as polished stone, belonging to a man named Preston Hawthorne, the managing partner of a powerful venture capital firm, and, as she knew from her research, a major donor to the current political party. His firm, Polaris Capital, had significant stakes in some of Citadel Cole's closest competitors. Jasmine, a pleasure, Hawthorne said, his voice dripping with an almost theatrical cordiality. I've been following your career with great interest. The work you've done at Citadel is truly remarkable. I just wanted to offer a friendly bit of advice. The federal contract space is different. It's not a meritocracy. There are certain protocols, certain relationships that must be respected. The veiled threat in his words was unmistakable. He was telling her to back off, to cede the contract to one of his firm's portfolio companies. He was a product of the same old guard she had already fought. But his power was more diffuse, more insidious. He wasn't a disgruntled board member. He was a gatekeeper of an entire ecosystem. Jasmine's knuckles whitened as she gripped her phone, but her voice remained as steady as a rock. Mr. Hawthorne, thank you for the call. But I believe in a meritocracy. If our proposal is the best, we will win. We won't be engaging in any backroom deals. There was a long silence on the other end of the line, a quiet that was more menacing than any angry words. "Very well," Hawthorne said, his tone now cold and sharp. "Good luck with your bid, Jasmine. You'll need it." The phone call sent a ripple of unease through her. She knew this wasn't just a simple business negotiation anymore. It was a test of her integrity and her company's resolve. She called an emergency meeting with her leadership team, including Arthur Vance, the engineer who had become an indispensable ally. "We are in this for the long haul," she told them, her gaze sweeping across the room. "We will not compromise our values. Our bid will be based on the best technology, the most ethical approach, and the most transparent process. We will win this with integrity, or we will not win it at all." Arthur Vance, who had been a quiet observer, finally spoke. "I'm with you, Chairwoman. My team and I will build a proposal that's so good, they won't be able to say no. It'll be a technological masterpiece." The next few weeks were a blur of frenzied work. The Citadel Coal teams worked around the clock, fueled by caffeine and a shared sense of purpose. They built a proposal that was a work of art, a comprehensive plan that leveraged their combined strengths in AI, cybersecurity, and sustainable technology. They addressed every potential vulnerability, every possible contingency. They were not just bidding for a contract, they were building a blueprint for a better world. As they neared the submission deadline, a seemingly innocuous article appeared in a prominent financial magazine, subtly questioning the financial health of Citadel Coal. The article hinted at a secret liability from the original merger, a vague, unfounded rumor that was just damaging enough to raise eyebrows. Jasmine knew it was Hawthorne's doing, a calculated smear campaign designed to erode confidence in her company. The phone calls from concerned board members and investors began immediately. She met with her board, a tight-knit group that had grown to trust her implicitly. They were rattled, but their faith in her was unwavering. "We can't let this go unanswered," one of the members said. Jasmine agreed. Instead of issuing a defensive statement, she decided to take a different approach. She called a press conference, inviting all the major news outlets. Standing at a podium, the Citadel Coal logo behind her, she didn't just deny the rumors, she dismantled them. She presented a slide with her company's impeccably clean financial records, a detailed, line-by-line breakdown of every single transaction. Her transparency was her greatest weapon. She had nothing to hide, and she was not afraid to show it. "The integrity of this company is not for sale," she said, her voice echoing through the room. "And neither is our vision. The rumors you have heard are baseless, and they are designed to distract from the real issue at hand, which is to build a better future for this country. We stand by our work, our values, and our commitment to transparency." The press conference was a masterstroke. The narrative shifted from one of doubt to one of admiration. Jasmine had taken a direct hit and turned it into an opportunity to showcase her company's unwavering integrity. The reporters, disarmed by her candor, wrote glowing articles about her leadership. The smear campaign had backfired spectacularly. The day of the final bid submission, the mood was a mix of nervous excitement and quiet confidence. They had done everything they could. The proposal was now in the hands of the federal committee. All they could do was wait. The wait stretched on for weeks. The silence was deafening. Jasmine immersed herself in her work, but the shadow of the contract hung over everything she did. She was in a strategy meeting when her assistant knocked and entered, her face pale. "Chairwoman Cole, it's the Secretary of Commerce. He's on the line." Jasmine's heart hammered against her ribs. She took a deep breath, excused herself, and walked into her private office. She picked up the phone. "Secretary, what's the word?" she asked, her voice betraying a hint of the anxiety she felt. There was a pause, and then the secretary's voice, a familiar deep rumble, filled the line. "Jasmine, congratulations. The committee was unanimous. The contract is yours." A wave of relief so powerful it almost knocked her off her feet washed over her. She closed her eyes, a silent prayer of thanks forming on her lips. She had done it. She had won. And she had done it on her own terms, without compromising her values, without playing a single one of Hawthorne's games. She went back into the conference room and gave the news to her team. The cheers that erupted were a symphony of pure, unadulterated joy. They had fought the good fight and had come out victorious. Later that evening, after the adrenaline had faded and the celebrations had died down, she was sitting alone in her office, looking out at the glittering lights of the city. Her phone buzzed. It was an email, a short, terse message from Preston Hawthorne. "My congratulations," it read. "You played a different game than I'm used to. I'll be watching. You made a powerful enemy, Jasmine." Jasmine read the email, and a quiet, confident smile spread across her face. She wasn't afraid. The first time she had been told she wasn't in the right place, she had proven her worth. This time, she had proven her power. And the line she had drawn in the sand, the line of integrity and purpose, was a line she would never cross. The journey of a single, powerful woman was far from over. It had just begun. The federal contract, a project that became known as the National Infrastructure Modernization Initiative, or NIMI, was a beast of a project, a multifaceted endeavor that touched every part of Citadel Coal's operations. For Jasmine, it was a test of her ability to not only lead a company, but to shepherd a national-scale transformation. She was in constant communication with federal liaisons, meeting with a new set of politicians and bureaucrats who were as cautious as they were ambitious. The stakes were high, and the scrutiny was intense. One of the most delicate parts of the project was the cybersecurity element. The legacy systems were riddled with vulnerabilities, and the new digital infrastructure would be a prime target for state-sponsored hackers and criminal organizations. Jasmine had a long-standing friendship with a brilliant but reclusive cybersecurity expert, a woman named Lena Chen who ran a small, elite firm that specialized in ethical hacking. Lena had a reputation for being fiercely independent and notoriously difficult to work with, but she was the best in the business. Jasmine flew to San Francisco to meet with Lena. She found her in a nondescript office in a quiet part of the city, a space that looked more like a well-organized hacker's lair than a corporate headquarters. Lena, a woman with a shock of electric blue hair and a quiet intensity in her eyes, greeted her with a rare, fleeting smile. "Jasmine," Lena said, her voice a soft, precise whisper. "I'm surprised to see you here. I assume you're not looking for a personal firewall." Jasmine laughed. "Something a bit more complex, Lena. I need you. The NIMI project. The feds are terrified of a breach. I need you to build a system that is, for all intents and purposes, unhackable." Lena's eyes narrowed, a flicker of professional interest igniting in them. "Unhackable is a fairy tale, Jasmine. Everything can be breached. The only question is how much effort it takes. And who is trying? Then build me a system that makes it so difficult, so costly, that no one in their right mind would try," Jasmine countered. "And if they do, I need to know immediately. I'm getting you a blank check and full creative control." Lena's face broke into a full smile, the kind of genuine expression that transformed her entire demeanor. "Now, that is a tempting offer," she said. "A blank check, and no bureaucrats telling me how to do my job? I'm in. But fair warning, I work on my own terms. My team and I will be embedded in your project, but we will report only to you. Deal I. Deal. Deal," Jasmine said, shaking her hand. She knew the risk she was taking. Lena was brilliant, but her independence was a liability in the structured world of federal contracts. But Jasmine had a deep, unshakable trust in her judgment. She had a feeling that breaking a few rules for the sake of integrity was a risk worth taking. The integration of Lena's team into the NIMI project was not without its challenges. The Citadel veterans, accustomed to rigid protocols and extensive documentation, were baffled by Lena's unconventional methods. She and her team worked in a secretive, highly secure lab, often at odd hours, communicating in a shorthand of technical jargon and cryptic messages. They were ghosts in the machine, and they drove some of the more traditional project managers to distraction. One afternoon, a senior project manager, a man who had been with Citadel for over 20 years, burst into Jasmine's office, his face red with frustration. "Chairwoman, I'm at my wit's end with that Lena Chen. She's a rogue element. She won't submit her progress reports, she refuses to attend team meetings. And her team just disappeared for a week, without a word. We can't have this kind of an anarchist working on a federal project. Jasmine listened patiently, her fingers steepled under her chin. When he finished, she took a deep breath. "I understand your frustration," she said, her voice calm. "But I want you to trust me on this. Lena is a rare talent. The reason she's not following protocol is because she's building something that protocol can't even conceive of yet. She's a necessary outlier. And she just sent me a report. A single line of code that explains everything. She found a critical vulnerability in the government's own legacy system, one that's been there for years, and patched it without anyone even knowing. Now, imagine if our competitors had found it first. You wouldn't have a project to manage." The project manager looked at her, his face a mix of disbelief and grudging respect. He had never met a leader who so readily embraced such a chaotic and non-traditional approach. "She did what?" he said, the fight draining out of him. "She did what was necessary," Jasmine said, a quiet sense of triumph in her voice. "I ask you to let her work. She's a guardian, and she's already proven her worth. Just keep a close eye on her, and let me know if anything seems off." She knew she was asking a lot, asking a man who had built a career on rules to make an exception. But she also knew that true leadership was not about blindly following a playbook. It was about trusting your instincts and the people you empower. She had given Lena the freedom to be brilliant, and in turn, Lena had given her an invaluable gift, a shield of technological invincibility that no amount of political pressure could ever break. The Ninny project progressed at a furious pace. The Citadel Cole teams, inspired by Jasmine's unconventional leadership, found new ways to collaborate and innovate. The old hierarchies crumbled, replaced by a more agile and creative way of working. They were not just building a new infrastructure, they were building a new corporate culture, one that was a living, breathing testament to Jasmine's vision. As the project neared its completion, Jasmine found herself reflecting on the past few years. She had gone from being a successful CEO to a powerful chairwoman, and now to a national figure. She had faced down prejudice, corporate sabotage, and political pressure, and she had emerged victorious every time. But the victories had come at a cost. The long hours, the constant scrutiny, and the weight of a multi-billion-dollar project had taken their toll. She had very little time for herself, very little time for a life outside of the office. One night, after a particularly grueling day of meetings, she was sitting alone in her apartment, a quiet, minimalist space high above the city. She felt a profound sense of loneliness. She had accomplished so much, had earned the respect of the most powerful people in the world, but in some ways, she was more alone than ever. She thought of her mother, of the gentle words of caution and support. She had made it to the top of the mountain, but the air was thin, and the view, while magnificent, could also feel isolating. The next morning, she made a decision. It was a decision not of business, but of life. She called Reginald Sterling, the man who had given her this chance, and asked him to meet her for a quiet dinner. She had something important to tell him. They met at a small, unassuming restaurant he had chosen, a place with quiet booths and a menu that hadn't changed in 30 years. They spoke for a long time about the project, about the company, about the future. And then, she took a deep breath. "Reginald," she said, her voice soft but resolute, "I'm going to step back. Not from the company, but from the day-to-day operations. I'm going to appoint a new CEO, someone who can carry the torch. I want to shift my focus to a new role, one that's more about long-term strategy and mentorship. I want to build a foundation to support young innovators, to create a pipeline of talent that is so diverse, so brilliant, that the old world of gatekeepers and prejudices is made obsolete." Reginald looked at her, a look of understanding and pride in his eyes. He had been expecting this. He knew that Jasmine was not someone who would be content to simply preside over a company, no matter how successful it was. Her purpose was always bigger than that. "I had a feeling this was coming," he said, a gentle smile on his face. "You're not a manager, Jasmine. You're a visionary. You were always meant to do something bigger than run a company. You were meant to change the world. What you're proposing, that's a legacy. That's how you truly break the old cycle. The next few months were a blur of transition. She chose Kenji, the young engineer she had mentored, to be the new CEO. He was bright, ambitious, and had a deep understanding of the company's new, agile culture. His appointment was met with unanimous support from the board and the employees. As she prepared to move into her new role, Jasmine found a quiet sense of peace. She was no longer running on a treadmill of endless meetings and crises. She was no longer just the chairwoman. She was a mentor, a philanthropist, a visionary. She was building something more lasting than a company. She was building a future. Her new foundation, aptly named the Innovators Guild, became a haven for young talent from all over the world, a place where their ideas were nurtured and funded, a place where they were given the freedom to fail and the resources to succeed. She spent her days meeting with students, mentoring entrepreneurs, and speaking to communities that had been traditionally excluded from the world of technology. She was no longer just opening doors. She was building an entirely new entrance, a gate that was open to all. One afternoon, years after the summit incident, she received a call from a familiar voice. It was the security guard, the one who had so casually dismissed her. He was older now, his voice filled with a quiet humility. "Ms. Cole?" he began, his voice trembling slightly. "I don't know if you remember me. I was the guard at the tech summit a few years back. The one who told you the wrong thing." Jasmine's heart ached with a strange mix of emotions. She had long since forgiven him, had long since moved on, but the memory was still a powerful one. "I remember," she said, her voice gentle. I wanted to apologize again," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "I had a daughter who wanted to go into tech, and she was having a hard time. She told me about your story, about the CEO who was told she wasn't in the right line. And it was my story, wasn't it? I was the one who did that. I was the one who stood in your way. My daughter, she said it made her feel strong, that she wasn't alone. And that made me realize what a mistake I made that day. What a profound mistake." Jasmine felt a tear roll down her cheek. It was a different kind of victory, not of power or wealth, but of grace and forgiveness. The story she had lived, the one that had started with a simple act of prejudice, had gone on to change not just a company, not just an industry, but a single man's heart. And in that moment, she knew that her legacy was not in the boardroom she had conquered, but in the lives she had touched. The line she had been told she couldn't cross had become a bridge, a path for others to follow. And she, a visionary who had once been an outsider, was now the guardian of the gate.